As the crisis in Ukraine escalates, President Joe Biden of the United States has reportedly turned to social media to help him battle Russia's propaganda machine. The White House held a Zoom briefing for 30 top TikTok stars to receive key information about the war unfolding in Ukraine. What role does social media play in the unfolding war? Let's discuss this then. I'm joined by tech expert and publisher of Stuff magazine. That's Toby Shapshak. Toby, good afternoon. Thank you for joining me. So it used to be that, if you wanted to influence the other side in a conflict, you would either do it through shortwave radio, you would release doves that have messages attached to them, or you'd fly really high and drop leaflets and communicate to populations. But now we are in the age of TikTok. Can it be, and is it being used in the information wars that are playing out?
Yes, it is. And I'll give you an example. For instance, we no longer call ourselves Stuff magazine because we're an entirely digital operation. We still have a magazine, but we're completely digital. That wasn't the case before COVID. And that's really what's happened. This has been called the first TikTok war or the first information war. Two things we know about it is that never before has there been the most amazing amount of information published about this war. There's a guy who wrote for Slate.com. He was a journalist and an American soldier during the American invasion of Iraq in 2016. He wrote a piece saying, in the first 24 hours of this invasion of Ukraine, there's been more information that was published in a week of that conflict. And that was considered a televised war. But this is unfiltered. Tula, this is completely unedited. These are people uploading their own videos of what they're seeing, of tanks driving through the streets, of missiles crashing into the TV tower in Kiev. This is real experiences by people on the ground, directly sharing what they are seeing online. And that's just what's so extraordinary about it, because it is in so many ways a social media war. And of course, the first star of the war is Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, who has taken to social media really like a TV actor to the presidency. And he's just been phenomenal. He's on the streets. He's filming himself. He's wearing a T-shirt. He looks like he's in combat fatigues. He's being really real, as opposed to Putin, who's sitting in an ivory tower in Moscow, whereas Vladimir Zelensky is in the fields on the front line. But what's really fascinating, if he's being marvelized, of course, he's been turned into a superhero. But like he said allegedly said to American officials who offered him a lift out of Kiev, he said, "I need ammunition, I don't need a ride." And that's kind of, comments like that have just become iconic. There was a meme doing this round on social media with a picture of him and his family. Excuse me. And it had something from his inauguration speech in 2019, where he said, just don't put a picture of me on the wall, put a picture of your kids. And every time you do something, look up and think about your children. Now, that's an inspired leadership thing to say. And 3 years later, he is on the front line, literally leading his people in a conflict. And there's been a lot of comparisons of Putin to Stalin. Joseph Stalin was the great Iron Man of the Second World War, who crushed his own people both before and after the Second War. So, that's kind of the analogy. So in terms of what the White House is doing, well, that makes perfect sense. This is a social media war. The Arab Spring in 2011 was all about 2010, 2011 was all about Blackberries and Facebook. Facebook is so last year's war. Yeah. This is all about TikTok, and people are sharing it. I searched for Zelensky meme, and I found a series of websites, 870 million views of various memes of Zelensky. Now, this is the real world we live in, and what TikTok and Zelensky himself is showing us is that you can report from the front lines. Yeah. And it is a way of showing the true horror of a totally unnecessary invasion directly to the world by the people who are suffering through it.
Toby, I suppose the various social media have got something of their own unique character. You know how people talk about Facebook being the village, where something takes a while to get there and to be debated way after it had been trending on Twitter. Twitter is contentious. You are not going to be out there, not be challenged, and if not just challenged, even insulted and dragged, etc. Instagram is supposedly the happy place. What can you say about the happy and sometimes pretentious place? What can you say about the character of TikTok that would appeal to the White House such that the White House press secretary would decide that this is actually the right platform?
Well, fish where the fish are. That's the key message in business, and it's the key message in marketing. And what we're talking about here is marketing. This is an organization, just happens to be the White House, that doesn't know how to reach a segment of society and is appealing to people who should be involved. Now, hilariously, and I don't know whether it's hilarious or ironically or tragically, one of these so-called influencers, and I call them so-called influencers, I have a real point of view about people who are famous for being skinny and thin and good looking and appearing on TikTok having a good time. I can't see that as a meaningful contribution to humanity or the world, and it scares and saddens me that so many youngsters in the world think that is a meaningful career path. But what we're talking about is that's where people look. The youth of the world, and certainly the developed world, and certainly America, have abandoned Facebook and Instagram. The metrics from the Pew Internet study have been showing that Facebook's percentage of 15 to 25-year-olds is just plummeting. That is true in most developed worlds, not so much in the developing world, because poorer people have no other option but to use free services such as Facebook or WhatsApp or Instagram in terms of free access. And a lot of companies give data packages. So what the White House is doing is appealing to a bunch of people who speak the language of the youth, of a segment of society, and good for them. This is what's necessary. This is a terrible, heinous, outrageous conflict. The Russian military are shelling maternity hospitals in Mariupol. They're shelling hospitals in Kiev and Lviv. This is insane. And there's no justification. We know from all of the stuff that's been leaked, the social media side on the Russians, these Russian soldiers are saying, we were told it was a training exercise. We were told that they would welcome us with open arms. They've just been deceived as much. And interestingly, Putin was considered the first winner of an information war. Or let's say Russian hackers who clearly answered to him, were involved in the disinformation campaign before Brexit, before the 2016 US presidential election. They threw their weight behind getting Donald Trump in power because, he was as we saw, a novice in terms of foreign affairs, and he peddled Putin's lies and enabled him in many ways. When the first attack happened in Crimea 8 years ago, this is when this should have been taken on. And he's, the comparisons to Hitler have happened a lot. Hitler took, small parcels of property, then he invaded Poland, and that's when the war happened. There've been lots of things leading up to this. So I suppose in a way, the White House is doing the right thing, which is using the channels that they possibly can to communicate to an audience who wouldn't otherwise see this information.
All right, Toby, I've got to leave it there. Thank you for your insights. That's Toby Shapshak, a tech expert and publisher of Stuff, talking to me about the role of social media, particularly TikTok, in the information wars that are playing themselves out around the Russia-Ukraine conflict that's currently taking place in Europe.